like to ask you, raise your hand if you've ever struggled to come up with ideas for marketing or social media or putting content out there or really getting your message out there just in general. Cool, most of the room. We have a wonderful organisation that's worked with CDAT very recently, is KISS Creative. At KISS Creative, they keep IT simple whilst achieving impactful outcomes. They're all about providing effective marketing without overcomplicating the process. KISS Creative provides traditional and digital marketing services that make a difference, blending simplicity with brilliance for the best possible outcome. They are a team of marketing specialists working together to create memorable marketing. Managing Director Salena Avard, where is Salena? Hello, Salena. Here you are. A little bit hidden with the speakers. I keep saying, where are they?
Loitering in the corner here.
Fantastic. Managing Director Salena Avard has extensive experience across all facets of strategy and delivery of communications, graphic design, marketing, advertising, business, economic and community development. With formal qualifications in business administration and government management, Salena has worked across local government, community engagement and private industry for more than 25 years. Please join me in welcoming to the stage, Salena Avard.
Thank you. Cheers. So with that intro and after lunch, the pressure's on, yeah? Don't go to sleep on me, will you? Thank you so much, firstly, for the opportunity to come and talk to you this afternoon. I am hoping that we have something very exciting that is going to make all of your lives much easier moving forward, which is a big call, I know, but let's see how we go. So just briefly, the things that I wanted to talk to you about today is the communication strategy, implementation plan and toolkit project that we've been working closely with Gail and the other CDOs to produce documentation that we hope is going to really make things smoother and help bring together and align the strategy as well as the execution of your communications and marketing into the future. I'll just talk briefly about the key deliverables, what we promised would happen as a result of this project. Go through where we arrived at in the strategy and what the objectives that you told us were important when we were talking to people about developing the strategy, the implementation plan, and then really spending the bulk of the time today actually having a look at the toolkit, because it's where the rubber hits the road. The strategy is obviously incredibly important because it gives us the direction we're heading. But at the end of the day, it is the toolkit that for most of you in the room will be where you spend most of your time. We'll also have a look at some of the other assets, and then throughout all of the time I'm here with you today, I'm really happy for questions at any time, but we'll also allocate some time at the end if there's questions. So I think it's fair to say, probably in line with most things Gail does, this is an incredibly ambitious and visionary project. The first few meetings we had about it, I came away and I think just started pouring drinks, hoping that at some point it was going to all come together. Drinks of water, sorry, just to be clear, drinks of water. Hydration. But it is a huge project. It's been incredibly interesting, and as an agency, we've learnt heaps, and which is always lovely. But also behind where we've arrived at, there was a very conscious and lengthy decision process that went into what information is required, how we make it available to you, how is it able to be editable with still maintaining brand integrity, how much is too much, all of those sorts of things. So as you go through, you will see there is quite a lot of information, and it is my hope that over the coming years the toolkit will continue to be tweaked and added to as more resources become available and as the world progresses, you know, because that's what happens, nothing stays still. And so we've built the toolkit in a way that it is able to be updated by you and by Gail and her team to make sure that it stays relevant for as long as possible. So the purpose of the project is really, quite straightforward. The purpose of any communications is relatively similar, but basically increasing the profile of CDAT across New South Wales. So I think there is between 70 and 80 CDATs working a lot of the time independently. And one of the things that we really wanted to help streamline was the connection and communication between CDATs and CDOs and other partner agencies that you already work with. Develop and implement a communication strategy and action plan is a really key part of this, because the strategy basically says we're here today and we want to be there, so what do we need to do to bridge that gap? Increasing awareness of the existing activities that so many of you are already doing, and obviously with any group of volunteer or organisation, pick groups of volunteers, there's varying degrees of capacity and time and resources, and there's also vastly different requirements depending on where you are based on location and demographics and all sorts of things. So trying to bring some, I guess, meaning and strategy to that was really important. Increasing your engagement with each other and increasing the community's engagement with CDATs. And making a usable resource of information, which is what we're going to spend the majority of our time talking on today. I just have included this statement because it's something Gail said to me in the very first conversation we had, and that was about facilitating incidental, accidental, and I'll catch up now so you can see what I'm saying. Facilitating incidental, accidental, and purposeful conversations about drug and alcohol use. So that has kind of underpinned all of the decisions that we've made through this process to get to this point. Okay, so there were basically 4 key deliverables for this project. One was the development of the communication strategy, which I guess sets the high level vision. The next is the implementation plan that says the who, what, when, where, why and how, that those strategy items are going to come together. The toolkit, and then probably the most important thing has been the engagement with CDOs and CDATs, and Gail and the rest of the team across the 5 organisations to make sure that this is something that's going to work for everybody. This little diagram really just tries to help explain the relationship between, sorry, I won't do that anymore, I promise, the relationship between the different documents. So we do have the strategy sitting at the top there in green. We have the red implementation plan, which, as I said, is where we take what's in the strategy and turn it into action, and then through to the toolkit, which is the actual grassroots delivery of that information. And then the yellow bits are both the activities that you do on the ground and things like your social media tools and those communication assets that you're already using. So I said I wasn't going to talk about the strategy and implementation plan too much, and I won't, but I think it's important to understand what the key findings were in the strategy. So I've included here the objectives and just basically the purpose of the strategy. So obviously things like clarifying the brand voice. So for anybody who's not aware, a brand's brand voice means that when you see something written, something spoken, a video from McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Health New South Wales, it has a very similar tone, it has a similar style, and that's your brand voice. So the types of language that is used all needs to be consistent, And with organisations like this, the type of language and things like acronyms and jargon and that sort of thing that is totally appropriate in one place, perhaps is not in another place. And so really being aware of having enough flexibility in the brand voice to be able to talk to all of our audience. We did lots of work identifying who the stakeholders and audiences are. So really understanding day to day, who is it that we need to speak to and what do we need to speak to them about. And so once we identified that, which for those of you who were there, it was a very comprehensive whiteboard list of who the audience was. And that's all captured in the strategy, which will be made available to you all. What we then did was break that down and say, okay, so for each of these audience sectors, what do they want from us? What do they want to hear from us? What do we need to understand from them? And then working through that and saying, so understanding who they are and what we want to talk to them about, how do we do that most effectively? Is that face-to-face meetings? Is it emails? Is it a publication, a newsletter style publication? Is it actually getting everybody in the room at an event? What is the correct way to be able to make sure that our message is received by those people? So that's what the strategy does. And basically out of the strategy, 5 key objectives were delivered. So I guess at the top of the list is minimising harm through education and communication, which is kind of why everybody in this room exists. So to be purposeful in the planning of communication, because we all know that when we're in a rush and we're doing things on the fly, that's when really simple things like typos that you would otherwise never make happen, through to really talking to people, perhaps not in a timely fashion. Things creep up on us. We forget to do things at the right time. So often a lot of time and energy goes into preparing the messages, but they're not always received because the planning isn't there. So really making tools available to you to help that planning. To really, I guess, emphasise the stronger together, which is at the core of the CDAT brand. It's on every version of the logo that exists, and that's really the part about bringing together everybody in this room and the external partners to make sure that we're all on the same page and we are all saying the same things in a similar way, and that it feels cohesive. So we're bouncing ideas off each other and we look like one organisation. And then the next point is to provide the tools to allow you to do that. So it's great to have the strategy to say this is what we should be doing. The important thing is then saying, well, to be able to do that, here's the tools to do it. And then the last thing, which underpins, any communication strategy, and that is to have a cohesive brand, so that no matter where people come across the CDAT logo, no matter what event it is or how you're being consumed by the community, everybody has an understanding of what CDAT means and what it looks like and what you stand for. All right. The implementation plan I am just going to speak very briefly about, because I did mention to you it's the who, what, when, where and how. So it's timeframes, it's the actions, it identifies which actions are going to address which objectives, and it really is just the to-do list to make the strategy happen. So here's where the exciting bit happens. And for anybody who's got a device in front of you, I would encourage you to play along. This is what the toolkit looks like. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's in it. But if first you would like to go to newsouthwales.cdat.org.au. Yes. Okay. Okay. And so bonds between the two of you, if you can be the approving letters, that's great. So newsouthwales.cdat.org.au. And you're going to want to go up the top to that button that looks like a little person's head and try to log in. So some of you, I'm sure, already have logins, but if you don't, you can quickly fill out the information to register and we'll approve you right now so you can play along. Yep, so you'll get a message first that says... Okay, don't worry, we'll just follow along up here, it's no biggie. It's fine. So when we're not all doing it one time and you want to do it, the way to do it, so the very first time you have to register, and so you just literally click that little head at the top there and do the registration for the first time. You will get an email that says, thank you for registering. The administrator is going to approve, was waiting to approve yours. And then once it's approved, you'll get a congratulations. So for anybody who hasn't been through that exercise, you just need to do that once and then you will be in. And so, Miss Jess, if you want to play along on the screen, the place to go to find this information is to the resources tab, which is relatively straightforward, and then into member resources. All right, so the toolkit is actually housed within the member portal here, and it's under master, the communication master documents, which Jess is showing you there. So you can just click on the master documents, or you can simply at the top there under file name, just type the word toolkit in and it will bring you straight to the document. There's a couple of different ways to do it. So once we go into the toolkit, it's an interactive PDF. So there should be, I'm going to say this at my own peril, there should be limited opportunities for that, for things to go wrong, that people can't access it, because if you don't have a PDF viewer on your machine, you can always view it in Chrome or in Safari or whatever browser you use, which is why we've elected to make it an interactive PDF. The other thing is too, while I would encourage you to most often use the toolkit from the website, from the member portal, there is the possibility for you, if you're going somewhere where you don't have a lot of signal or whatever, you can always use it off your desktop. So you can actually download the PDF and save it on your desktop or save it in your files so that you can use it, which is another reason that we decided to do it this way. Miss Jess, can you zoom ever so slightly? Okay. All right, so these are all the topics that the toolkit covers off. So I'm not going to read them through individually, but there's communication fundamentals, which talks about things like who are our audience, how are we going to talk to them, what are the key messages. And within each of these, Jess, will you just click the email tab, that email link for me? So talking about email, there's things like giving you some email etiquette guidelines, so things that might be helpful. And then if you just scroll, you can see there that we've also provided you an email signature template. So you can actually go in and edit that template with all of your details that you want. There's a couple of different versions. One includes a call to action for anybody who might want to volunteer into your CDAT. But basically, you've been given all of the tools to be able to edit the information to suit yourself. So if you want to put your mobile number on it, great. You can put your mobile. If you don't, also fine, So it's completely available to you to do in your way. The thing that in a minute, hopefully Canva doesn't do the same thing to me, because I will give up if Canva says that we've reached a capacity. But in a minute, I will get you all to, if you don't already, to have a go at logging into Canva so we can set that up for you. Because a number of these links, some of them go through to Word documents and Excel files and that sort of thing. Anything that has a design element to it, like your email signature or whatever, actually goes through to Canva. and so you can edit it within Canva. So just scrolling down, let's have a look at achieving consistency in branding, Jess, page 14. So this is just an example that I'll give you around consistency of brand, because it shows you a taste of some of the templates that we've provided for you as well. So you can see here, there's lots of places where it's insert text here or the name of something here, because you don't need us to tell you how to do your job, you just need us to give you the tools, and so that's what we've done. So you can see there, off to the side you have a DL flyer, so it's all to the correct size, that if you sent it to a printer or you sent it to Vistaprint or whoever, the sizes are all correct. There's an A3 poster, and there's also a social media tile, and all up, I think there's about 10 different versions. Some are for webinars, some are for events, but there's 10 different suites of this style of documents where you've got various like DLs, the posters and social media tiles in various different formats. So again, Jess, can you just click through on one of those? So when you click through on that, it brings you through to the member portal. So if you are accessing things from the PDF document, from the toolkit, it will bring you through the member portal to the place you want to be. If you have done something 50 times before and you just want a shortcut to the document, you would do that directly through the member portal without going through the toolkit link. So the same information is available in both places. Wherever possible, we have worked very hard to reduce the number of clicks that you have to do to be able to access the information that you want. So you can see there in that example, there's 4 different versions of this webinar kit. Again, it doesn't have to be for a webinar, it can be for an event, it can be for whatever you want it to be. We've just had a look at what a lot of you are doing and tried to give you some information that's as close to what you're already producing as possible. Can I just pause for 1 second and get some sense of if people can see yourselves using this? Does this feel like something that, yes? Yay, you're all very quiet. I was starting to sweat up here. So okay, great. So let's actually have a go, Jess. You'd be rolling your eyes at me. But let's have a go of logging into Canva and just completing the process. So when you click that link to say, I want to use this template, it brings you up to this screen. And it says, this template's been shared with you to edit. And so you can use the template. Again, the reason that this is done is it means you can use everything you want without ever affecting the integrity of that core document, that core template. So, if you want to put your local CDAT logo and you're working with 3 other partners, you can put their logo on it. You can do whatever you need with never having the fear that you might affect, the core of the toolkit. So once you're in here, you can change out images, you can update text, you can put the name of what your event is, you can add links, you can add QR codes, you can do whatever you want in terms of being able to use that document. The control freak in me feels the need to say that the colours that have been selected are the colours that are the CDAT brand. And the fonts that have been selected are because they are brand fonts. So if you can resist the urge to change the colours and the fonts substantially, I would encourage you to do that. Obviously, there's lots of flexibility where you can still do things like changing out images and you can move things around and do whatever you need to do. But the colours and the fonts most definitely are brand assets, so I would encourage you where possible to keep the integrity of those. So I'll put the control freak back in the box now that I've said that. So again, do you feel like that's doable to be able to just log into Canva and do the editing that you need? And so then once it's in your Canva, obviously those assets sit there in Canva. Within the toolkit, again, we've provided lots of information about if you are sending something to a printer, what's the best file type to use and how to do that within Canva. We've also given you information about what is the difference between a JPEG and a PNG. And again, lots of you will know that. Some of you won't know that. Some of you will learn bits and go, oh, I thought I knew that. Maybe I didn't necessarily know that. So we've tried to provide you as much helpful information. I was walking past at an event on Saturday night, a pull-up banner, and the logo on it was so low res that you couldn't actually read the name of the business. I was like, see, this is why we all need to see that toolkit. So those things do have real impacts, things like really low res logos and that sort of thing. And while they're done with the best of intention, unfortunately, like you know, it's easy to waste money and resources. So hopefully wherever possible, we've gotten rid of that issue for you. For anyone who's fancy enough to have Canva Pro, which costs a whole $167 a year, there are many, many additional assets, photos, videos, all sorts of things that you can use in Canva Pro. And we can also set up for you what's called a brand kit, which means off to the side when you're choosing things, the CDAT colours and fonts and logos will all be sitting off to the side there. So I will make sure that there's cards left around for you, and worst case scenario, come through Gail because she's got nothing else on. And we'll make sure that if we can get into your Canva Pro, we'll set that up for you to make sure you've got it if you need it. All right, let's flick back to the toolkit and have a look at some other things. I was going to say, and the other, if you have something that says, if you have a certificate that says that you're not for profit, Canva will give you Pro for free. You just have to upload your certificate. True. Yes. Yep. It's actually a really easy process. Yeah. And so you can have it annually for free. So let's have a look in meetings, gatherings and events, Jess, just at something really simple like, that page 48, yeah. Okay, so if you're going to host a meeting, for example, again, there's a tiny bit of this that feels like we're telling you how to already do your job, but a big part of providing the toolkit, and there's an entire section on it that is dedicated to recruiting and onboarding new CDAT members. So what we've tried to do is reduce the amount of inducting and helping that you need to give to new people when they come on board. So I apologise if it feels a little bit like I'm telling you how to do your job, but it's designed to help people with all levels of abilities and capacities. So, so if you just click through there, you can see there's agenda templates and meeting templates, which as soon as you click it there, it downloads at the bottom of your screen into a Word document, and it's completely editable. It's all branded up. It's ready to go. And again, once you've got it on your computer, you can save it in your files, you can distribute it, you can PDF it, you can do whatever you want to it, knowing that the next time when you come back, that same template will be there. So how do you feel about that bit of it? Yeah, helpful? Yeah. So in that same folder in the member portal, the member resources, there's also things like the CDAT terms of reference and some other documentation that, again, you know, if you're attending an interagency or you're doing particular things with other partners, it will give you some background information to be able to help. The other thing is too, what is in these files currently? It doesn't have to stop at that, you know. If there's something that you think, oh, every time we go to a meeting we use this, talk to us and we can get it put in there. It's, as I say, it's not a static document. It's designed to be usable. I actually can't read what else is in there. I can't read that at all. Oh, yeah, so it's your auspicing nomination form. Is that what that says? Yeah, great. Incident report forms, that if something happened, oh, there we go. Media release templates, there's all sorts of things. And sometimes you will see, you know, we might in the toolkit refer, well, the CDAT brand guidelines is a perfect example. There might be various places where within the toolkit where we make reference to that. And so it will be made available in each of those folders. Okay, so the next bit I just want to talk to you about is having a look at the resources that we've developed. So there's sort of two parts to this toolkit. One is this that you've seen, that is helping provide templates and guidelines for you to be able to do things. The other thing is, in the consultation we had with you, we talked a lot about what the different triggers and incidences that happen in various communities, which I guess trigger the need for some communication. So in some of our, well, I was going to say in some of our more rural areas, but it's not at all exclusive to that, but we've all experienced in the last couple of years floods, and just before that, droughts and that sort of thing. So natural disasters was something that came up often in the consultation that we did. So if you have a look in the toolkit there, you will see you can click through to natural disasters. And I think you've got, I don't know, about 15 or 20 different posts about flood and bushfire and drought and things like large-scale livestock loss, about, you know, talking to, you know, for rural people talking, so things like, you know, messages around talking to somebody else helps, that sort of thing. Christmas was another topic that came up, I think, pretty much in every conversation that we had. So with all of that, just using that as an example, that clicks through, and so you can literally just download and schedule that to go out on your social media post. So these designed, ready to go images, there's in excess of 200 of them. So there's an entire year's worth of socialing and more for you to do 1 or 2 messages a week. And never have to, never repeat them. And so then obviously in amongst that, there's sharing other information from agencies and that sort of thing. So there's a really rich resource there that if something happens in your community and you feel you want to talk about it, you want to get messages out about it. The other thing is to remember that, let's just use the bushfire example. If that's happening in your community, you can post that image and then have a call to action, so where people can seek help, other agencies, you can tag people and all of that sort of thing. So so it gives you ready-made assets there to be able to leverage from. Can we just have a quick look at Christmas, Jess? For a couple of them, because there's quite a lot of messaging, so we've done them as a series that you can use. So if we have a look at social media around Christmas, that you will see there's subfolders, because there's actually 2 series around Christmas. I don't mind which one you open, Jess, whichever. And they're actually designed that you could, I guess, put them out 1 a week for 12 weeks in the lead up to Christmas. You could do 1 every second day, so they're designed to be a series. You could post 2 of them a week. And they're basically tips for reducing stress and staying healthy through Christmas. And so again, we've included with this, unlike some of the others, we've included it's fine to say no. The messaging is actually on the tile rather. So don't act out of obligation. It's fine to say no. Equally, there's the other Christmas series is actually labelled 1 to 10, and it's the same sort of thing. So it's just to give people a reminder of things in the lead up to Christmas that we all get carried away. Like, I've got my list that's, 6 pages long and I'm never going to get through it all, that sort of thing, to try to reduce the impacts, the harm at that time of year. Yeah, so that's the 1 to 10. So can you imagine yourself using these for your social media? Yeah. So as an agency, we produce somewhere in the vicinity of about 8,000 to 10,000 social media posts a year. And it is the single biggest resource drain we have. Finding fresh content, creating a message and matching an image to it is so time consuming. And everyone's like, oh, you just whack a post up, it's fine. It's like, yeah, sure. So we've tried very hard to have a look at, and I think there's 12 different topics. So Christmas, obviously a natural disaster. There's tips for parents about talking to teens and children. There is posts that are more geared towards young people and youth. So they use a different style of imagery that's more relatable. And we know that youth are much more attracted to less busy things. So they have a solid background. They have very clear text, that sort of thing. So we've, yeah, there you go. That's the tips for parents one. So there's a whole, I think there's 20 something of those that, again, you could just schedule one a month, or however often you want to use them. But basically what you've got there is a couple of years worth of social media content to call on for whatever's needed. Again, we in the toolkit we have capped it off at 50 topics. So I think we had a list of, I don't know, closer to 100. And so what we had to do was narrow it down to the most critical ones. And then that's what we've presented to you, is the 50 most critical topics. Okay, so I'm going to take some questions because I've talked a lot.
First of all, thank you for doing this. It is comms, and especially having a social media presence, is such a huge drain trying to come up but stay true to the brand. I do have 2 questions. With the CDAT logo itself, is there any room to actually spell out the words of CDAT? I know this is a sore spot, but no one ever wants to spell out CDAT, but people don't know what CDAT means. So when its logo is on a poster, it's kind of when we're trying to introduce ourselves or reintroduce ourselves in a community.
That's 100% a Gail question, so consider yourself flick pass.
Thanks so much, Sal. We've often had that question about, can we spell it out? We've recently had an experience at a conference where we've had our banner up, and what we actually found is, because it isn't spelt out, people came up and said, what does that mean? So it's an opportunity to engage. We would encourage you that perhaps you could spell it out when you're talking in your communities, but actually putting it on the banners. We can talk about it down the track, but I'd really encourage you to use it as an engagement tool of, did you see that? So it's an opportunity to be able to talk to people about it. So I can't help myself.
That's hilarious.
See that? Did you see that? Hey, did you see that? So, be creative. Sorry, Sal knows me. But it's an opportunity to get people wondering about it and then spell it out to them. So I encourage you to go out and go, see that.
I will think about that.
You can practice it in the mirror.
It might grow on me. My second question is, obviously I haven't read through the toolkit.
No.
First time I'm seeing it. But do you go over, we tend to use QR codes a lot so that we can track sort of like the ROI on our printed assets.
Yep.
So is there a bit of information about how to use QR QR codes and where to put them in
Yes.
on your assets?
So we don't talk specifically about QR codes, but they definitely are an amazing asset for anybody who does think they can go through the process of uploading your certificate to get Canva Pro for free. There is actually a QR code generator within it. And it's really, really simple to use. It's one of their plug-in tools that it's just off to the left there like everything else. And so the use of QR code, I mean, we all know, everyone used to say that QR codes was a dying art, and then COVID happened, and whoever invented the QR code must be going, I told you it would come into its own. So maybe we can, Jess, or Bon, can somebody just make a note about that? Because what we might do is just pop something in there specific to QR codes. The thing I would say to you is, so often I see QR codes on social media posts. If you are looking at something on your phone, you can't scan the post. So they're great for posters and they're great for printed assets. They do not work on digital assets. Don't put them on your website and don't put them in your social media. I mean, it's just one of those things. But the other thing I would say is it is just be really conscious that when you're printing things that, again, as an agency, we are often waiting for a QR code from somebody or whatever, so you put a holding one in there and then it goes off to the printer and it's like, oh, so that happened. So the nice thing with Canva having it is you never have to put a holding one in there. You can do it from scratch, but it's a really good point and they're a great tool and everybody knows how to use them now. So, yeah. And in terms of tracking and reporting for your funding, yeah. Hi.
G'day, how are you?
Good.
Michael from Grafton. Hello, everyone. I know it's a big ask. I have joined CDAT just recently, so I'm just beginning to understand what it's all about, and it's been very informative while I've been here. When I was first asked to take over CDAT, the Community Drug Action Team, the flash on my head was red berets, batons,
Yes.
walking down the street, tapping people on heads, is what I
There'll be
thought.
action, baby.
And I know that we're here to talk about language and changing the language.
Yes.
It's an absolutely massive ask, but I do put it forward as food for thought that we recently did a youth presentation, which was called, sorry, Amanda, Live and Loud, where we had youth there and we had youth playing music, a lot of young bands, and I was introduced as Michael from the Community Drug Action Team, and I know CDAT, and every kid there's like, I'm not going that way.
Yeah.
So I just thought that perhaps it's food for thought. I know it's a lot of money, it's a lot of branding. CDAT is CDAT, that maybe even a change. And I'm thinking something more along the lines of informed choices or something along those lines. I just, again, when I thought of that, because I'm about harm minimisation, and I thought when I was first given this task, I sort of thought, how am I going to do this? So just when we're talking about changing the language, the name of the organisation itself puts youth off as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Just something to consider.
And I think, well, I mean, I don't want to, surmise how it went down, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's why the CDAT acronym was developed, is because it feels more approachable than the word action and team. So I wouldn't be one bit surprised if that's why that iteration came about. The thing I would say to you is there is often, I guess, a default when we talk about brand to think of logo as brand. With all of the assets that we've provided you and that you've seen here today, I think it helps demonstrate that brand is much more than simply the logo. And I'm 100% not discounting what you're saying for 1 second. The thing that I would say is there is lots of ways that you can use the colours and you can use the fonts that still look like CDAT without saying CDAT, And so we were actually asked the question when we developed a lot of those assets, why is the logo not on everything? And because the answer is, nobody, particularly young people, want to be sold a message all the time. It wants to be conversational. And so I guess the analogy that I use is, you know, when you go into Harvey Norman and somebody says, "Hi, how you going? Can I help you with anything today?" And you say, "No, I'm good, thanks. I'm just having a look around." And they go, "Well, what about now? How about now? Are you ready now? Do you want it now?" It's like, that's what heavily branded social media feels like to me. It's like, I don't want you to sell at me. I just want you to have a conversation with me, you know. I just want to hear what you're doing. I want to see what you're up to. I want to know what services are available to me. I don't want you to sell it to me, you know. So I would encourage you to think about the brand as much more than just the logo, and see where you can make the other elements, the colours and the fonts and the messaging of the brand more tailored to your audience than just simply, you know, that CDAT message. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I would certainly take on board the point about the name. Yeah. Are there other questions? Does that mean I answered every possible question? That's amazing. God, I'm good. Write that down in your book, Gail, that I'm good. Oh, okay. It's all right then. Yes, there is. Yep. So there are, for anyone who's feeling sophisticated, there are some third-party tools that allow you to schedule your social media in advance. But since Meta bought Instagram, and so Meta is now Facebook and Instagram, they've developed a tool that allows you to schedule. And honestly, it's as good as any third party. And I know there's lots of temptation and, you know, great opportunities for things like TikTok and Snapchat and a lot of the other platforms. And certainly if you're hyper focused on youth, I think there's opportunities there. The thing that I would say is consider the resource investment compared to the return on investment for those things, because again, someone says, yeah, but it's just a 10-second video for TikTok. And it's like, yep, that sometimes takes 30 takes, you know, to make it happen. So there are 9 million Australians on Instagram every day, and there are 13 million Australians on Facebook every day. And then there are, it ends up being about 96% of our population is on Facebook regularly. So if you focus your time on nothing other than Meta on Facebook and Instagram, you will be hitting a pretty healthy portion of the community. Just statistically, if you are talking about a younger audience, Instagram is an under 35 audience. So certainly even, you know, teenagers mostly still have an Insta profile. Most of them don't have a Facebook profile. But they do have an Insta profile, and they definitely, you know, do Snapchat and TikTok and that sort of thing. But again, if you're considering your return on investment, producing content for Instagram and Facebook is the place to invest your time, because it's where the bulk of the people are the bulk of the time. And then if you've got time to do TikTok videos and that sort of thing, that's awesome. Yeah. All right. Are we good? What time have we got, Gail? Did I finish on time? No. But, oh, good. I'll tell you some other stuff. Can you go back to my prezzo, Jess? I know that you're all going to stay up tonight and get on the member portal and look at it, aren't you? I know you are. So really quickly, this is everything that is included in the toolkit. So for those of you who've got questions about what is in there, so underneath the communication fundamentals, we had a little bit of a look at understanding your audience, thinking outside the square, which in a world where content is king, new ideas that you can come up with and fresh content and new ways of saying things is gold. The key messages is really taking some of the work that we did for the strategy and putting it into real life. We touched on it a little bit, but knowing what language to use is really important, because when you, my team always rip me off because I do it. So like if I'm talking to one of our clients who's a tradie, I'll be like, yeah, mate, no worries, we can get that done. And then I talk to Gail or someone really sensible like that, and I'm like, yes, of course, no problem, we can do that. So, I mean, using the right language and the right tone is really important depending on who your audience is. And the reality of it is, if you speak like somebody else speaks, they are going to understand what you're saying. So, knowing what language to use is really important. Tools for engaging different audiences, and I think, have you done some Menti? Yeah, okay, so Menti is a great tool. There's lots of other great engagement tools, and if anybody is prepared to risk the Chinese government and you do want to download TikTok, have a look through it for the newest engagement tools. Just do a search for interesting ways to engage people. There's so many cool tools out there, but Menti is a great one, and it's really easy to use, which is helpful. In the branding section, we've given you things like the colours to use if it's something that's on screen, as opposed to the colour codes to use if it's a printed document. Amazingly, they do vary. We've got lots of merchandise to be able to order, so we've included some information about how you can simply and easily order merchandise. We've given you some guidelines around pooling resources with other CDATs, which again is, I think, particularly neighbouring CDATs. As I said, there's a whole section on recruiting new members, and so that includes things like an induction checklist. It gives you assets to be able to invite people to come in, and that's come out from 3 different ways. So someone who has their own story to tell, someone who has time to contribute, and someone who perhaps has a family experience that they want to share. So there's lots of tips on using Canva, which I know I've banged on about Canva. No, I'm not paid by them. All of the social media content, things like how to use hashtags, because on Facebook hashtags don't really matter. On Instagram, hashtags are king. Do's and don'ts in your social media. We've put in there how to access the member portal for anybody who's using the offline version of it. Meetings and gatherings, we've given you things like risk assessments for running events. We've given you checklists for different things. We've given you an event management document that's an Excel document, lots of different things. And then some information when you're preparing your action plans and reporting, things to consider, like taking photos at any events you're running, etc. So if anybody needs help with setting up Canva, if you haven't already, just holler. We'll hang about, but just come and speak to myself or Jess or Bon, and we can help you set it up. It's very straightforward, and if you're hopeless at remembering passwords like me, I'd encourage you to use your Facebook login, because then you don't have to remember a password. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry that's so many words said.
Stay there.
Thank you kindly, sir.
You can give some your way.
Oh, really?
Hold up, stay.
That's all right. I've already fallen over once today. I won't do it again.
Just step that way so we don't. So I'm really hopeful that that is a tool that will be used with vigour, with encouragement, and be able to promote your CDATs. There is a lot of work and a lot of interpretation as well between what we are looking for and how it's actually been produced. But I would like to just also say a little thank you for the time, a little bit quirky, for all the time that you've given us. We want to give you some time back.
I love it.
So thank you so much.
It's actually the only thing I need.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.